Battletoads and Double Dragon is a side-scroll beat-them-up developed by Rare that came out for the NES, Genesis, Super Nintendo, and Game Boy in 1993. For the first and only time, we get to see two of the hardest beat-them-up games out there combined into one kick-ass adventure. For use of this review, we're going to be looking at the Genesis version. The title screen gives us our selection of 1 and 2 players. 2 players is separated by Moda and beat, which basically means do you want friendly fire on or off? I don't know why anyone would want to play mode A. One of you would have to stand back during all the boss fights or you just hit each other. There's no advantage to it. Once you decided on a mode, you can start your game. You get your choice between Rash, Zitz, Pimple, Billy, and Jimmy. Each have their own advantages that they brag about in the opening cutscene if you wait around on the title screen. Like for example, Pimple's so dumb you have to stand right next to the opening to throw those firecrackers back at the window guy. Both the Toads and the Dragons have their own animation for their attacks that makes them unique to each other. There are 2 buttons for attacking and 1 for jumping, as usual, and C pretty much does the same thing. With a running start you can launch more powerful blows to earn a higher score when raking up points. Does more damage too. Each set of enemies triggers a new animation for your character when taking them down, and it's funny the random things they'll react to. Like if the guys from stage 2 catches you climbing, their eyes will bug out. It's hilarious. Both the Turbo Tunnel and Rope Descent from the first Battletoads return in this game. Turbo Tunnel isn't nearly as hard as I hear it is in the original game, but man, oh man, is the Rope Descent on stage 3 a pain in the ass. Not only do you have guns shooting at you, but you have crows flying at you all while desperately trying to kick them before they knock you off. Why did there have to be so many? There's a move you can do to make it easier to take out enemies by causing the characters to shapeshift, but I could never do it. Items come to you in the form of small gray balls you can break for extra lives, health points, and a small screw that grants invulnerability for a time. These items are usually either laying around someplace or appear while you advance. After a while you get into the habit of collecting them even if you don't need the health. The extra lives are always good to get even after you max out your hearts. The most challenging part about the Turbo Tunnel is getting all the items in. A row to earn an extra life. A lot of love and care went into each stage. There's a lot of attention to detail and the levels are fun as well as challenging, and I do mean challenging. This is a Battletoads and Double Dragon game after all. The levels are split up into parts and on the final bit you face the boss. Bosses are a mix of Battletoads and Double Dragon enemies, just like the thugs you fight. Battletoads and Double Dragon only have 7 stages overall. One of them plays more like a game of asteroids than your typical side-scroller. That's when you get into the pod and take on the rat ship. In one stage you're running on a rocket headed to Earth and you're flooded by mini-bosses while they combine obstacles from previous stages to halt your advance. The mix of space action with everything else gives the game a nice sense of variety as you never know what to expect. Don't worry about length since back in those days, what the games lacked in length, A made up for in extreme difficulty. You don't get to pick the difficulty either. On stage 6 you take on the shadow boss himself. There's a cool image of him standing in the background gazing upon you from the darkness while you're working your way through his thuds. Pretty cool. For the boss fight itself, you need to jump on a lamp in a ceiling and hang from it in order to avoid his rolling attack, and then go back to wailing on him until he's dead. After that it's the Dark Queen herself. She spends most of the boss battle in the ground as flames. You have to avoid her and then wait for her to come up to throw fire at your ass before you can get any offensive of your own in. Meanwhile, the machine on your right shoots out items for you to take to help along the way. Once the Dark Queen is defeated, the game is over and you save the day. The graphics hold up pretty well given how old it is. Everything is clearly defined, bright, and colorful. One of the reasons I like the Genesis version so much better than the Super Nintendo is because you have different color hearts for each character. Not the boring white hearts you get with all of them in its counterpart. Sometimes the simplest things can have the most impact. Music is pretty catchy and will be stuck in your head for days. Another perk to the Genesis version is that there's a separate track for the boss fights, so you know it's clobbering time. Battletoads and Double Dragon combines the best of both worlds to make a fun and challenging beat-them-up. If you're a fan of Battletoads, Double Dragon, or both, then I can't recommend it enough. If you're not familiar with either, don't worry, it's still a fun game. This was the first Battletoads / Double Dragon game I played, and it's responsible for introducing me to both franchises. Have a blast. Get it.